Okay, so in this little short tutorial, what I want to show you is exactly why we're looking at these things as far as, with kind of a bigger point of looking at time series, which the bigger point when we look at trends and why they cause problems in terms of understanding the true correlations between two economic variables. Okay, so that's the whole point of this, is to really talk about and show you why that there's these problems. So to start off, what I wanted to do, and this is just, so what I wanted to do is just show you uh, a scatter plot of the 10-year interest rate against real investments. Okay, so we actually see a very big and strong negative correlation when we, and this is from the Fred data. It's the same data set you have. So, you know, first off, when we do these things, we're looking at correlations and we say, okay, maybe I'll just scatter these two things. So if you didn't know anything about trends and that these could be causing problems, you might just throw these variables in, scatter them, be like, oh my gosh, look at this strong negative correlation, and this must be like the true correlation. What does this mean? This means that when interest rates are low, investment is high. Yes, that's exactly what economic theory would tell us, actually, that lower interest rates mean higher rates of investment. Okay. Why? Because it's cheaper to borrow at lower interest rates. So you take more loans and you invest more. This correlation is exactly what economic theory would tell us. So it must be right, right? Well, actually, we're not quite so sure yet. And here's the reason, is that both of these things have trends. Uh-oh. And here's kind of the scary part. Okay. So let me just show you what the problem is here. Okay. So the problem is actually, let's look first at, remember, investment and the 10-year interest rate. So I've got, where is this? Investment. I've got this has got too many things on it. 10-year interest rate. There it is. Here's the 10-year interest rate. I'll just blow it all the way up. Look, here's the 10-year interest rate over time from the early 1980s until the present, and you see it in levels. And what's happening? It's falling, right? Why is it falling? Well, because in the 1970s there was the great inflation, the hyperinflation. The Fed had to fight that by jacking interest rates up super high, and we ended up with higher interest rates that persisted into the 80s when our samples started. So that's why we started off so high. And then there was a series of subsequent drops and subsequent drops and subsequent drops all the way until the current period. So interest rates show a negative trend over time. There's a negative trend over time. What's investment doing? Look at investment. Oh boy, investment didn't do a good job here. What's going on, investment? Okay, something's not good. Why is this not good? Unemployment. Okay, let's go ahead and just make a new one. I got sheet. Let's go ahead and just throw investment in here. We'll just make a new one. Okay, so let's throw it in the rows, and let's throw over time, the date, and let's make sure we're doing it by quarter year. And bada bing, there we go. There's our real investment graph. I'm going to get rid of this show me. Say show me later. There's our real investment over time from the 1940s all the way up into 2024. So if we start from 1980s, which was like where our interest rates started, we'll be starting from right about this point. And then looking forward, we see that real investment grew over time. Why? Because the economy grew. So you see real investment has a positive trend over time, whereas the interest rates have a negative trend over time. Okay, so you can see that you see this trend. I could fit a line that goes right through here that's negatively sloped. There's a negative trend over time with interest rates, a positive trend when we have real investment. So when I scatter the two, I get a clear negative trend. A clear negative correlation between investment and interest rates that are driven by time. Time is the emitted variable here. Time is what is really driving this correlation. And you see here, look at this. When I take, where's the interest rates? There we go. Scatter, no, interest rate. So look, when I detrend the interest rate by taking log of first differences, now I'm left with the change in the interest rate. So when look when so from so look, there's a negative change, 86 to Q1 of 87, 86 to Q1 of 87. You see it's slightly on the negative side. It's below the zero. Okay, so whenever this line is below zero, then real investment is falling. When the growth rate is above zero, then it's rising. That's what the growth rate does. Is that it's actually showing you how things are changing over time, either positive or negative. Okay, and so that's what we've done. We basically, and we can look. The growth rate has no trend. It's got a flat. The average of this thing, it's just going to be, it's going to be centered around its average, basically. So what I'm really interested in, and what I really want to know, is when I'm looking at correlations and time, is I want to know, as one variable is falling, what's happening to the other variable. That's what I really want to know. Okay, now it could be that there's a negative correlation, or it could be that this negative correlation is currently just being spuriously driven by the fact that we have trends. So let's take the trend data out, and we end up with, let's take a look at that. Let's actually do a new worksheet. And if we look at growth of investment, is this going to give me oh, this has some kind of an error in it. Uh-oh. The calculation of growth of investment is invalid. What happened here? Oh boy, I got to recalculate this thing. Okay, this is not going to turn out to be a great tutorial video because my calculation is off, but let's go ahead and try to recalculate it. Why is my investment calculation off? Let's go ahead and look and see if we can't edit this. GDP. No, that's not even the right. Oh, is that operation on field GDP? Why would it say that? Investment. Oh, because I changed the name of investment. So that's why, because I changed the variable name. That's why it doesn't like it. Let's take a look at that. That's probably going to be better. It's not such a bad. We saved the day. Yay. Okay. Okay, so there we go. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the growth of investment and the growth of, what would we have here? The growth of the 10-year rate. And let's look at these over time, scattered by the quarter year. And I think I need to do something here, which was compute using date. I think that was it, right? Compute using date. And there we go. Okay. Look at this. This is actually quite different story, is it not? Now what I've done is I've scattered the growth rate of investment and the growth rate of the 10-year interest rate. And what do we see here? Let's look at analytics and let's throw a trend line in. It's actually showing this, like, well, if we were to look at this more carefully, it looks like it's showing a positive trend line. But if we describe the trend line, if you have statistics, you see that the value, here's the standard error, the p-value. Actually, it's statistically not different from zero. This is partly also due to the kind of data that we have. So I will tell you something else about time series that's also a little nuanced, is that it depends actually on the window of time that you're looking at. Okay, so we're looking in terms of quarters. You might get a different look if your window was in terms of years. So just to kind of make that point more clear, imagine that we were interested in the calorie consumption and your body weight. Okay. So if you were to look at that just in terms of like a straight daily value, you also have like water weights and other things that are like noisily throwing your body weight around. And, on a daily kind of interval, the correlation between the calories you eat and the weight that you gain may not actually be so statistically obvious, right? But when you look over longer periods of like a window of a longer period, I know for me, like as soon as I start shoving burgers in my mouth, okay, I'm probably going to actually be a little heavier a day or two later. It actually takes me about a day to actually gain weight, right? And also to lose it. So there's actually a little bit of you see what I'm saying? The time window of when you're actually looking starts to matter in terms of also when if can you see a correlation? If I look at the daily fluctuation, I might see a different sort of correlation than if I look at the monthly, or if I look at the quarterly, or if I look at the yearly. Okay. That's also something to consider. But the main point that I'm showing you here is actually that, look, when I detrend the data, I get a completely different analysis than when it's just when there's the trend. And what I'm seeing in this strong negative correlation is in fact the trend. Because remember, as investment goes up over time, there's the interest rates falling. But just looking at the trend, that's all that I'm picking up with this negative correlation. I'm not actually picking up the changes. As one changes, how does the other change? That's what I'm really interested in. And that is not captured here. This correlation is driven spuriously by the fact that time itself has been omitted in our correlation. So time is the omitted variable. Time itself is the spurious correlation. And I think the power of like what this shows you is not only do you need to not only does this show you, one, that trends in time series can be very hazardous, but it also shows you that spurious correlations can can cause what you think to be a correlation in one way, in this case a negative. Makes sense actually by theory, that would make sense. But it actually turns out that you might find a completely opposite result possibly when you detrend things. And when you look at it in terms of changes, you may find something completely opposite. Okay. And you can't just think theory. Actually, that's the thing too. Data science is like, of course, this is appealing to theory, but is that what's really going on? And actual data science doesn't care so much about theory, because the world is the way it is, no matter how we theoretically think it should be. And that's kind of the interesting point here too. And so detrending is the way that we can get the most accurate result. Anyway, this is a long tutorial. I took a lot of time to talk about a lot of things, but these are all important things that I think needed to be kind of clarified in this video, and things that I think would have been missed. And I want you to do the same exact thing and kind of look at this within the context of GDP and unemployment, and see how that changes between levels, and see how it changes when you look at it in terms of growth rates. Okay. Now look at the measurement of unemployment in exercise. Okay, make sure you look at the measurement. You're looking at the number of people unemployed. It's not an unemployment rate. It's the number of people unemployed. Do you see a trend there? Why do you think that there's a trend or not? Okay, think about it. Okay.